We all remember the headlines, right? A vaccine in under a year. It was an absolutely incredible scientific achievement. But today, we're going to go behind those headlines. We're going to explore the monumental challenges that made this truly the hardest race in all of science. And just to put this into perspective, developing a new vaccine is usually a marathon, not a sprint. On average, that whole journey from the lab to your local pharmacy takes a staggering 10 to 15 years. But then, the world witnessed this entire decade-plus process get crushed down into less than a single year. It was a scientific sprint unlike anything we have ever seen before. And that just raises this massive question: how on earth was that even possible?
Well, that's exactly what we're going to unpack. We're going to break down the insane hurdles that scientists had to clear to make the impossible possible. Okay, let's dive in.
So here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with this core paradox of how you test a vaccine when you're essentially chasing a ghost. Then we'll see how scientists navigated the fog of messy, incomplete data and how they race the clock against just mind-boggling logistics and some really tough ethical dilemmas. And finally, we'll look at how you measure success when the finish line itself keeps moving.
All right, our first challenge. I love this phrase, chasing a ghost. Because how do you even begin to test a vaccine when you have no idea where the virus is going to strike next?
You see, for a trial to actually work, you have to be where the virus is actively spreading. But outbreaks are notoriously unpredictable. A hotspot can flare up and then just fizzle out before a research team can even get on the ground. And if that happens, you get no data. It's a huge problem.
So, scientists had to get clever. They adapted this really innovative strategy that was used for Ebola, called ring vaccination. The idea is, instead of waiting for the fire to come to the fire station, you take the fire station directly to the fire.
And here's how it works. It's brilliant. First, you identify a new case. Then, teams just scrambled to trace all their recent contacts, and even the contacts of those contacts. This creates a protective ring of people around the infection. And then, boom, you vaccinate that entire ring, which stops the virus in its tracks and, at the same time, gets you critical data right from the source. Okay, on to our second challenge, navigating the fog. To plan a trial, you need to predict where the virus is heading. But those predictions need data, and in a crisis, data is often messy, it's incomplete, or sometimes it's just not there.
And this quote really just hits the nail on the head. You can build the most sophisticated computer models in the world, but your predictions, your simulations, they're only ever going to be as good as the real-world data you feed into them. You know the old saying, garbage in, garbage out.
And as you can see here, every single source of data has its own thick layer of fog. Mortality data, well, that can be suppressed for political reasons. Positive test results, that only shows you a tiny piece of the picture, and it all depends on who can even get a test. And serosurveys, which test for antibodies, they're great, but they are way too slow and expensive to keep up with a virus that's moving at lightning speed.
This brings us to challenge number 3, racing the clock. And this one wasn't just about the science. This was about climbing a logistical mountain and, right in the middle of the race, facing a really profound ethical question.
So the pandemic basically forced a revolution in how we run these trials. The old model, frequent visits to a few big city academic centers, that just wasn't going to work with lockdowns. So researchers went all in on decentralized clinical trials, using telemedicine, shipping supplies directly to people's homes, and using tech to recruit a way more diverse and representative group of volunteers. It was a game changer. And this is where that huge ethical crossroads comes in. Once the very first vaccine was approved, a critical question popped up for all the other trials that were still going on. How can you possibly justify giving a volunteer a placebo, basically a saltwater shot, when you know a real working vaccine is now available to them?
It's a really tough dilemma, right? But the scientific reason for continuing was pretty strong. Without that placebo group to compare against, it would be impossible to answer other really important questions. Like, how long does the protection last? Is it safe over the long term? Does it work well for older people or people with other health issues? So they came up with compromises, like offering the placebo group the real vaccine as soon as the main results were in.
So, you've got a vaccine. You've run the trial. How do you measure if it actually worked? Well, as we're about to see, the answer is way more complex and, frankly, way more interesting than just a single number on a press release. First up, you've got the direct effect. This is the one we all think about. It's the personal protection you get from the shot. It reduces your own personal risk of getting sick. Simple enough.
But then you get these powerful indirect effects, what you might know as herd immunity. And this is fascinating. It's the protection that unvaccinated people get just because there's less virus circulating around them. When everyone else is vaccinated, the fire just has less fuel to burn.
Now, the total effect is where it gets really good for a vaccinated person. You're protected by your own shot, plus you get this extra layer of defense from the herd effect all around you. It's a total double win.
And finally, we have the overall effect. This is the big one. This is the ultimate public health goal. It measures the total drop in disease across the entire population, vaccinated and unvaccinated alike. It's the clearest picture of victory, and it shows why vaccination is really a community effort.
Our final challenge brings this whole story full circle, and it poses a problem that never really goes away. What happens when the virus you designed a perfect vaccine for starts to change? The first vaccines were incredible feats of engineering, designed to target the original, or wild-type virus. But a pathogen, which is really just a sciencey term for a germ, is a moving target. It's always evolving, and pretty soon new variants started popping up with mutations that changed the very thing our vaccines were trained to recognize.
And this kicks off a whole new race. It raises a ton of new, tough questions. Do the old vaccines still work against the new guys? Can we approve an updated shot without doing a whole new months-long trial? And how do you manufacture and distribute billions of new doses all over again? The race just keeps going.
Look, the lessons we learned from this incredible, breakneck scientific race have given us a powerful new playbook. We now know how to develop vaccines at a speed we never thought was possible. So the crucial question that's left is not if we can do it again, but whether we'll actually be ready to use that playbook the next time we have to.